From inside Cambridge Fieldhouse, I'm Scott Agness for FieldhouseFiles.com. Well, the Indiana Fever got the opening day started on a fantastic note and a dominating win over the Chicago Sky, a 35-point win and what became the second largest win in franchise history. And of course, they did it in front of a sellout crowd to get things started here in the new season. It was televised nationally on ABC with Ryan Ruocco and crew, who I had on the podcast last week, so check that out. But more than anything, it was great to just see this team play a meaningful game. We've seen them in camp over the last several weeks. We saw them go 3-0 in the preseason, but this is a whole different level. This is a whole different ball game, and this group was ready to go. No one more than Caitlin Clark, who had an offseason to herself. She was strategic about not playing any formal basketball anywhere. She wanted to get in the weight room, get on the court, work with her trainers, work at Hinkle and Cambridge Fieldhouse, and assess her game as she goes from that freshman to sophomore year. That's generally where you see players make one of their largest leaps, as after they have a better understanding of the way in which the league operates and what it is asked of them and demanded of them throughout a WNBA season. But a 93-58 win over the Chicago Sky. It's great to see former Mad Ants and Pacers assistant coach Tyler Marsh getting his shot as a head coach. First time with the Chicago Sky, but as you would expect, when there's such a change, it's going to take time, and that is indeed the case. But in this instance, we saw a different style of play from the Chicago Sky team. A lot more pace, a lot more three-point shooting, and again, though, we're going to have to give it time. On the other side, you do have a new Fever coaching staff, but it's a familiar face. You have Stephanie White, Breon January, Karima Christmas, all those former Fever players. All of them have been here on staff previously, and obviously they had one of the great offseason in WNBA history. That's what the GMs thought. They thought the Fever had a better offseason than any other team. And one thing that Stephanie White and her staff, especially Breon January, who heads up the defense, liked throughout training camp was emphasizing the defensive end. It was the area that they had to get better at. They weren't worried at all about the offensive end, about the shooting, about points distribution. They knew that would absolutely come, especially as they play that fast tempo. But defensively, that was a different story. They finished 11th last season under the previous coaching staff. Guess what? We saw the number one team. That was the Connecticut Stun under Stephanie White, under Breon January, and DeWanna Bonner, by the way, who's now with the Fever, was on that group. So the first assessment, the first real time you can take a look at that defense, they kept the Sky to 29% shooting. They kept the Sky to 22% from three-point range. I think they started the game 1 of 10 from distance. They forced 19 turnovers while also only turning it over 11 times in this group's really first regular season game together. And moreover, they kept them to 26 paint points. So overall, as much as it was a highlight for them to score 93 total points and nearly reach that century mark here in the opening game of the season, to me, it was that defensive end and how they were cooking at that end of the floor, which led to that offensive production. So many times they go hand in hand, and I think indeed this was one of those cases. Now, we heard Stephanie White all throughout camp talk about defense. Here's what she thought about the performance in game one.
Continuing to grow in our execution of coverage, continuing to grow in the versatility that we can use from a coverage standpoint, and then finishing plays. You know, we have not been a very good defensive rebounding team in the preseason. They got 13 offensive rebounds, but we didn't allow them to convert on a lot of those. We kept playing through it. They're a great offensive rebounding team, and Angel Reese is probably the best offensive rebounder in the game. So she's going to be tough to keep off the glass. But I felt like our energy, our effort, our attention to detail wasn't always there, but when you play with multiple levels of effort, you can cover up for a lot of that. And I felt like we did that. And we did that, 10 deep, 11 deep, however many we played, 10 deep.
Just being super aware. I think throughout the entire game we were communicating about what we saw, what we see, who needed to pull over, and also just, like Coach said, making them feel us, make them think about our pressure versus the play that they want to run.
4 Indiana Fever players scored at least 15 points in this one. You're going to see a lot of great distribution in minutes, in point totals, and rebounds. How about Lexie Hull, by the way? 9 points, 9 rebounds off the bench. She was the first sub in the game, but outside of Caitlin Clark's incredible triple-double, which I'll get into, Aliyah Boston was very comfortable. And remember, that's notable too because she did not start the season well last year. It took her about a couple weeks. She had to get off social media, had to focus on herself, get into the shape in which that Caitlin Clark and this Fever team want to play at. And I thought she did a tremendous job leading the bigs in this one. I thought Natasha Howard got things started early on. She finished with 15 points and 5 rebounds, but Aliyah Boston was so solid inside, finishing with a double-double in Game 1 with 19 and 13. But, of course, all eyes on Caitlin Clark, 20, 10, and 10 in 32 minutes of action for her first game of her sophomore season. Obviously a triple-double, the third as a pro here in the WNBA.
Yeah, I think we're just focused on ourselves. You know, you prepare every single night. I think that's the great thing about this league. And also, you know, you play and then you have a day and you play again, then you have a day and you play again. You have to be able to flush things really fast. You can't get too high, you can't get too low. You just got to stay right in the middle. So that's going to be the challenge for our group. You know, build from it, appreciate how we came out here and really played and competed tonight. But also, like, I felt like, you know, I know we put up 93 points and still won by 30, but I felt like there was a lot of ways for us to still improve. And that's what's exciting, too. Like, you know, and I think everybody's still hungry to go back to work and get better.
Caitlin was active early on in this one, drove it to the basket, got fouled, and earned a trip to the free throw line on the very first possession. A stark contrast from last season. She knocked down 4 3-pointers. You could see some new elements to her game off the dribble, the way in which she would beat defenders and maybe get into that step back that she loves so much, and obviously the way in which she was able to get to the free throw line. Now, there was the moment there in the middle of the game where Natasha Howard had a shove in the back from Angel Reese. Reese got the ball, went up for a layup, and Caitlin did what players do, and that is foul. No easy buckets is what Stephanie White was saying from this Fever team. But the officials believe that it raised to a level a little higher. So after review, it was deemed a flagrant 1 foul for her off-ball hand with the left hand, a shove there ultimately. But more than that, it was interesting post-game when talking about this. You had a post-game podium of Stephanie White, Caitlin, and Aliyah Boston. Aliyah was unaware that she had received a technical because she actually stepped in and came to the defense of Caitlin, which is notable. And as Angel kind of started to charge her, which would have been bad for Reese there, ultimately those two, nothing really happened, but I think they wanted to set the tone for the season, for the game, and gave both of them technicals. But Aliyah, yeah, she was stunned by that technical foul. It's only $200. Caitlin said she'll pick it up.
Aliyah, you got a technical. What kind of happened there?
Amy got the tech?
I know. Wait, what?
I got the tech?
I didn't know that.
Oh,
First of all,
I know.
let's not make it anything that it's not. It was just a good play on the basketball. I'm not sure what the refs saw to upgrade it, and that's up to their discretion after watching the initial whatever happened during the play and then whatever happened after. You know, we watch a lot of basketball. It's a take foul to put them at the free throw line. I'd rather give up 2 points. You know, I've watched a lot of basketball in my life. That's exactly what it was. I wasn't trying to do anything malicious. That's not the type of player I am. So, yes, wasn't anything like that. And I went for the ball, and that's clear as day in the replay. You watch it. You know, it shouldn't have been upgraded. But, again, that's up to the ref's discretion. But I appreciate AB having my back. I guess I don't even know what she did. I didn't see that.
Well, girl,
Have fun paying that fine.
Can I get Howard? Can you?
I got it for you. Don't worry.
The Fever played all 10 players that were available. The one that was not, Sophie Cunningham. They rested her as a precautionary reason after that right ankle sprain suffered a week ago in their final preseason game there in Atlanta. The only player not to score was Brianna Turner for the Fever. I mentioned Howard. She was strong. DeWanna Bonner was a special moment late in the game. Caitlin Clark was mic'd up by the ABC crew and caught her saying, later in the game, hey, we need to get her a point, It turned out they needed 2 points for DeWanna Bonner, and they did, to move into third all-time in WNBA scoring. She now only trails Diana Taurasi, her former teammate, and the player she says the greatest she has ever played with, along with Tina Charles. She has 7,489 points. I thought it was first a cool moment that the players, her teammates, her new teammates here in Indy, wanted to make sure she had that moment. And then Bonner, who was drafted in 2009, won a championship, has experienced so much in the league. She took in that moment, which is important given all that she has experienced throughout this league. And I think more than anything, she's on the positive side here with Fever fans and seeing the sellout crowds and just in awe, she said post-game, of all that she had experienced to get to this point and then to share that moment with her new teammates and these Fever fans.
Timing was just exciting, so man, that was a moment that I was kind of looking forward to, and I'm glad this is kind of over. So now we can just look forward and focus on the season.
What does it mean to you to reach that exact spot?
Man, I think I'm just grateful Most people don't get up there. That's really hard to do. You know, that's really hard to be in that position and to be in the league this long. You know, you've seen all the cuts that happened this week with great talented players. So I kind of got a little bit emotional, you know, to be at this moment in front of a sold out crowd, in front of all this attention, and to have that moment is just pretty special to me because I don't want to say I deserve that, but, you know, I'm trying to be as humble as I can, but being around that long, I kind of feel like I deserve that moment, and for it to happen right then and there in this time period in my career, it was just, I don't know, I'm just so grateful.
That's super special. I mean, third on the scoring list. I mean, that's like not a lot of people can say that that's their spot right now. And so for us, it's like super exciting. I think DB is such a light and such a positive leader for us in the locker room, and so to be able to see that and celebrate with her on the court was special. Sorry guys, I don't know what happened to
the last 3 words
the mic.
ago.
Hope you guys heard that.
I think, you know, DB is somebody that, you know, is Hall of Famer, like a legend, not only a good basketball player, a great person, a great leader. You know, the strongest voice in our locker room is hers, and it's fun to have been around here now for about a month just to get to learn from her and soak it in. And I'm really happy she got to do it at the free throw line and all the fans could go crazy and cheer for her because she certainly deserved that moment, and it was really awesome to see and be a part of.
There's a lot of notable fans in the crowd, including Pacer assistant coach Jenny Busick. A lot of the Pacer players were up in a suite, and of course, a Hall of Famer, Tamika Catching, sitting about 5 rows in the corner behind the Fever bench. She embraced Caitlin for a big hug after her triple-double performance in the Game 1 win for the Indiana Fever.
We did a lot of great things, but there's a lot of stuff that we could have done a lot better. We know our goals for this season, so we're not satisfied. We're still hungry to, you know, get to where we need to be. But at the same time, I think a little, for myself, I've never played in front of a crowd like this before, you know, like coming into the league 16, 17 years ago, we didn't have this type of attention. So 17 years later to play in front of that crowd, when I walked out, I'm just like, oh my God, I think I was a little shell shocked. So just honored, I think my teammates are honored, and we're thankful for the crowd and everybody showing up for us like this.
I think like what we talked about in the locker room is don't get comfortable. I mean, this is a great first win, but we have 43 more games to go, and so for us, it's just about making sure that we lock in, we rewatch the game, look at what we need to work on, get in the gym, and continue to work.
Things just went about as well as you could have hoped in Game 1. No one left with an injury. A double-double for Boston, a triple-double for Caitlin Clark, that monumental all-time scoring note for DeWanna Bonner, a newcomer who notably, I thought, again, Caitlin saying, hey, she's already the loudest voice in the locker room. And for them to be so accepting and willing for that to happen so soon, that tells you they're at a good place here so early into the season. Now, post-game, the media attention was there. 41 media members in the post-game interview room. I counted 6 cameras. That interest will continue on with this Fever team. Again, 41 of 41 games on national TV. This week, the Fever will play home and home, first against Atlanta here, and then travel down to the Atlanta Dream coming up later in the week. But the Fever get the big win on Saturday. We'll turn their attention to more Indy 500 stuff. The Pacers hosting the Knicks coming up on Wednesday here at the Fieldhouse, but more Fever coming up Tuesday against the Dream. For FieldhouseFiles.com, I'm Scott Agness.